in higher education towards the synthesis of knowledge rather than your GPA. And I can't tell you how many residencies I've been to where they keep telling you, stop looking at your GPA, stop looking at your GPA. We want you to synthesize the knowledge and apply that. And so if that's what they're going towards anyway, what's wrong with taking the emphasis off of the GPA a little earlier? Because that's what they're headed for. When they go, we're talking about students that are looking at their GPA for college, right? That's what their emphasis is, to go to college. And so when they get there, they're going to be met with this idea of your GPA is not as important as the information you're learning here, how you apply it, how you synthesize that moving forward. So in my opinion, I think that it doesn't hurt them to remove the emphasis off of their GPA so much as their knowledge.
Well, I think they're still getting their GPA.
Well, they will.
And, I mean, in colleges, a lot of the majors are GPA controlled. I mean, you have to pay attention to your GPA.
I'm not telling you that they're telling you to ignore your GPA.
But the rank, maybe, I think, you're saying.
I think the most important thing for a lot of these programs is how you synthesize the knowledge. What is being learned and how you apply it.
The most important thing for me is that we don't stop recognizing kids for their academic achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And that we do it because, when you're a track star and you come in first place, they tell you were in first place and you get the accolades that come along with that. Academics has to be treated the same way. That is my one and only thing that I'm focused on, is making sure that students are recognized somehow for their academic achievement.
Is the discussion, are we really deciding whether or not we're putting it on their report card, on the transcript? Is that really the discussion? When you say whether or not to recognize it or not recognize it, it's still being calculated. They still have a rank.
No.
So are we really deciding whether or not to put it on the transcript or not? Because I think you can recognize class rank without putting it on the transcript. And then the kids who want to disclose what their class rank is, they can get that information, and they can have that information sent to the universities that they're applying to. So if the discussion is whether or not it has to be on the transcript, I don't think it has to be on the transcript. I think people can decide to get that information and send it. But I think people think it's silly when you say, well, I don't want a number from 1 to 10 because I don't want you to know which order you were in. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I get the whole college part, and if it's not helping you when you apply to different colleges, then we don't really need it on the transcript. If it's just a matter of recognizing students for their achievement within Pennridge, and that's important to them that they accomplish that within Pennridge, then we can still acknowledge the class rank without putting it on the transcript. Because the transcript is more about getting into college. That's really the focus of your transcript. And I think that the focus for kids on class rank here is I was number 1 or I was number whatever, right? And so what about that for being kind of a middle of the road solution? Where we still acknowledge it, we still recognize it, but we don't put it on the transcript.
Yeah. I think to me it doesn't
Are you
really.
saying that when they say the top 10, they should say them in order?
In order.
I still think it should be in order.
And, okay, so those top 10 students, we know their class rank and that's announced at
Alright.
graduation, but it's not.
It's not verbalized, but people know that that's.
I mean, if you look at what we've been doing so far, it's
She's saying it.
it's already hidden information. You know what I mean? It's not like we're going from before we were announcing it and it was well known. We've already been trying to hide the information and the kids have to find it. And did that change the outcome? Did kids stop trying to get that higher class rank? No. So I don't think it makes a difference.
Well, I say we still do it the way that we've done it at graduation. Announce them in order, but not with their rank attached to it when you say their name, and take and remove it from the transcripts. And if a kid really wants to know, or a parent really wants to know for their kid, we have the tools to access what their number is, but it's just not on that transcript.
And then the kids who are taking those music classes like you're talking about, right? That information is no longer on the transcript. And if the universities that they're applying to don't really factor that in anyway, then it doesn't matter to them. The rank is still going to be there whether we report it or not. And so the only thing that those kids are losing out on is maybe they're not in that top 10, but they knew they were gonna not be in that top 10 when they made the choice to take those classes to begin with. So it's not then it's not negatively impacting those kids who are making that decision to take
Yeah,
music classes.
that's kind of what I
Yes,
wanted to
because
know
it's
too,
about the
is
knowledge.
what kids were in the top 10, you know, and what did they, I guess none of them took music.
No,
or
not,
band.
it's not none, they were underrepresented. It's
In the
not
top,
none.
in the top 10?
Well, I
Under
don't know,
10 or
top
the-
50.
And does,
Okay.
and isn't it about, like what you're saying, is letting them choose what information they want to be exposed to, what knowledge they want to engage in, rather than strategizing for the best. I do think that a hybrid is in order.
Can I try to synthesize where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because there's obviously
because
lots
it's
of
getting late.
We
feedback.
can just keep going.
And so we have spent, I don't know how long we just spent, we only really spent time talking about 2 bullets, right? We only spent time talking about eliminating class rank and top 10 students, right? 2 of the 3 on the bottom. And so I just want to make sure, if I ignored those 2 bullets, is there any feedback that the board has on anything else that we recommended this evening?
I like
Right,
the cum
and
laude
so-
and summa
Yeah,
cum
I
laude
do.
part.
I really
like
like
that.
Because the sense
I
is
like
silence
the-
is consent, right? That
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else you went, yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah.
yeah, we can move
And I
forward
like
with that
the
type of
plus
thing and that.
minus.
Right,
Yeah.
everything else, the
Oh, I
college
think
course
plus
thing made
minus
sense in
is
terms of trying to incentivize that. The AP and the changing of the weighting in terms of, I mean, we're gonna gather more feedback, and there is a meeting in December that we'll come back and kind of say, hey, let's synthesize what we talked about, give you another opportunity to have some conversation, see whether based on that feedback, we recommend changes to the kind of this slide and the slide before that in terms of those pieces. Is that,
Since you said silence is consent, I am absolutely not in.
I know that.
Yes, I know that. I'm telling the rest of the board and the other people, right, that I am not in favor of eliminating class rank. And certainly not going back to a GPA that encourages study halls, which is one of the reasons, if you read Dr. Zelensky's white paper that was written in 2002, and Dr. Scheid has a copy, and I'm sure would share it with anybody who wants to read it.
Certainly.
Like all of her papers, it's extraordinarily well written.
It is.
And it gives out the rationale for why that system was implemented way back then. One of the reasons was because so many students opted for study halls so that they could get a high GPA, because there wasn't a divisor, there wasn't any factor for the number of credits. Now, one of the other things that was changed at the time was the requirement of the number of credits to graduate from high school was raised. So that helped in a way, but this was the other piece of that, especially for our best students, to encourage them to take more courses, not to sit in a study hall. And I'm absolutely opposed to any of our students, frankly, sitting in a study hall. I think they should all be engaged in some sort of coursework when they're here. We're paying our teachers to do that. Our students should have that responsibility as well, as far as I'm concerned. It shouldn't be, let's sit around for 2 periods, we can get all of our homework done, and then we can go home and play video games or whatever we want to do. I understand that.
Some of us went to sports.
Well, some of us, but
Yeah.
but there are lots of people who accomplish the sports and still do all the classes here, so that can be done.
Well, I mean,
So
I-
I'm opposed to that change. I think what we should do is be fixing the class rank. The idea of the incoming people that transfer into the school. The idea, at that time, there were no cyber courses, and there were no, or very few of the college courses that factored in. There were a lot of things that weren't taken into account when this was written and when it was implemented that we could now fix. But that's what I would rather do, is fix it. Even if you don't put it on the transcript, frankly, I don't care one way or the other about that. I think that's something that students may care about, colleges may not care about, but I don't think we should do away with it.
Okay.
To Peter's point then, could you require enough credits to make sure that kids have to take a full course load, and that way you eliminate, then if you get rid of the divisor, it won't still encourage kids to just not take a class and take only the AP classes so that they don't water down their GPA. So maybe that would be at the middle we were talking about, that would be like a method to maybe get to that middle. And just, I know this is the complete opposite direction of where we were going with this, but a lot of parents want us to recognize the valedictorian, and so we've heard from people too, why can't there be a valedictorian, which is in the complete opposite direction of where you're going. with this, and then I just had one question about going back to the calculations and how we changed honors, academic, and AP. Is that now in line with all of the surrounding districts? Are we now more comparable to all of those other districts? Because I know our old system was not comparable to what the other districts are doing, and so I'm wondering if now this puts us more in line with what all of them are doing?
You mean with plus minus, or you mean with incentivized
The weight.
AP?
With a weight.
The weight. So you studied that closest, Mr. Tricky, right? You were one of the.
Yeah, it is
different
more-
colleges, I mean, different high schools.
That is.
He has a whole spreadsheet
I think-
of what their weight
I think,
was.
I don't know why we don't recognize our valedictorian or salutatorian. It would make perfect sense to me to do that.
Do these other schools that have gotten rid of the class rank, they don't do valedictorian either, am I assuming?
Some do not.
Okay.
Well, I've
Some
seen
literally
every-
don't rank and then announce the top two.
And
But that's what they do, you ask a question, that's the answer.
We didn't rank this, but here's who's number one.
I was also confused on when you said the districts that were studied, and then I think you said half were and half weren't. So the ones that are listed here, are they the ones that don't have class
Can you
rank?
go back to that, it's about
Or
2 slides, 3
50%
slides
of them
down.
do and 50% of them don't?
So if you look at the slides, the slides that are listed up there, those bottom 2 bullets, right? It is 10 of, if you count us, it's 10 of the 13 Bucks County schools. And then it's a lot, if you look at the list of the surrounding school districts, we did some of the ones that are geographically close to us as well as what I would call competitive school districts. When you look at the top 10, if you look at the top 10 school districts in the state, I forget if it's 8 or 9 of them don't rank. And they're routinely the same top 10, they just shuffle, right, the Ts. There are a very common list of the top 10 performing school districts. It's either 8 or 9 of them do not rank. So we looked at some of them to get a sense for what are they doing and why are they doing it, because they have top performing students, right? Whatever systematic planning our kids are doing, they're doing it as well, right, in terms of what they're trying to do. So they were the ones we studied and got information from. And so when you compare it to those, it was fewer than half, and that's the first bullet,
But do
that
we-
actually report class rank.
Can we get a broken down version of which ones do and which ones
You
don't?
certainly can. We have that spreadsheet. Yep, and we can send that to you.
Well,
Okay?
maybe we should just do what's the thing from Talladega Nights? If you're not first, you're last.
Another way to go.
Is there-
What a great movie
That's
reference.
the first. If you go back to that slide again.
That's the
From the
first.
board, before we move on to public comment, my guess is there will be some other, and
Ricky
either
Bobby.
here or through online. Is there anything from any other bullets besides class rank? That anybody has any feedback on, or any level of concern or clarification on, or,
Just,
because there were other things we talked about.
The college classes that, like the yoga
Yes.
reference, so
Yes.
they're not just automatically beginning, like this is a.
That would be an academic course. It would be like getting a B in one of our PE classes.
FYI, that
And-
course is challenging.
I'm not, and the only thing that we'll say out loud when we get to policy, because policy 214 will have to be part of this, we are gonna put in language that does allow the administration to make the determination that a college course is AP rank worthy. Because we do occasionally have students who get beyond our sequence of classes.
Yeah.
And so if you had a student who's a math genius, who takes all of our math courses, and so we decide that they should take a Johns Hopkins differential equations online course, we're not going to solely give that honors credit. So we're talking about the routine courses that most students are taking, primarily at Bucks County Community College or online somewhere. Those courses will either be academic or honors. We are going to embed language that allows us to give AP credit, because there are some courses in some situations everyone would look at and say, well, that's clearly an AP course,
Yeah.
right? It's probably beyond an AP
That's
course
fair.
or whatever. And it's but those students that is such a rare situation that we'll put it in policy. I didn't want to muddy the waters here. But there could be people or people listening at home who are going to say, well, wait a second, what about my kid who took? You know, and those types of situations. So we will allow that, the high school administration and the superintendent or his or her designee will make that determination based on the course and the situation. Okay.
Well, I'll be curious to see what so you're going to talk to, you said parents in one of the things too, you're gonna be talking to parents at your parents' meeting?
And
Is
so,
it?
right, so we have parent councils that are coming. We're also thinking about how do we then gather feedback from kids and parents in terms of what that might look like before we get to a December piece.
Okay,
Right.
good.
And we'll be able to find out how we compare to how our new weighting system would compare to the
We'll
other
look at it,
districts.
The only last thought I had with the follow up with Megan, that the visibility in Power School for the kids and the parents, not necessarily on the
Correct.
transcript
Right.
yet,
Yep,
because I've also heard that from parents.
as to why, right, we just have to figure out why that is, and I don't know
And
if
if
that's
it's-
something we decided or whether we
I
didn't
don't
pay
know.
for, or I
And
don't
if
know.
it's something that's
Could be.
yeah, it's marking period, that's okay.
Right,
The
yep,
last thing you
yeah,
have
that's
to do
good,
is
we can
make
figure
sure,
it
I
out.
know these are all
Okay.
related.
Dr. Scheid, can I suggest that we move the final, is that okay? That we
The
move
final
the
agenda item,
final
yeah,
agenda
yes.
item,
Yes,
right? It's
we
not
just
time
spoke.
sensitive, so
Absolutely, we'll move that to the December meeting.
can we move on to
And
that
then
public
are
comment?
we
Yeah.
motioning these?
So for everything that was, so it's capstone, ESL science, and the reading and computer applications proposals, they're all going to move forward for a vote. Right?
Motion?
December 3rd.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we're back to public comment.
Oh, I have to use this book back.
Anyone? Oh, pardon?
She hung in there.
No, we're not gonna do this one tonight.
I'll move it to December.
Yes, state your name and municipality.
Good evening. My name is Deb Yurchak. I want to thank everyone tonight first for doing all this work. I have never been to a board meeting before, against the wishes of other people who have asked me to attend. I did bring my daughter, who is currently a senior right now, and she is one of your top 10 students, and she is. But unfortunately, our last name starts with a Y. So with the program, that would mean still thankfully would not be for her, I think it would be quite a deterrent for her. So I actually have a funny story for you. My maiden name was Waldman, and I met my husband, and his last name was Yurchak, and I turned to my mother-in-law, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, and I said, I will never marry your son because I don't want to move down in the alphabet. Because as a product of the, well, this is being taped, 70s and 80s, I had to sit in the back of the classroom because you always sat alphabetically. And the greatest thing to me about college was that I got to move and sit wherever I wanted to and enjoy that feature. Same thing, I didn't want to marry my husband and have to move down in the alphabet. So I don't feel that the top 10 student alphabetically really resolves anything for anybody, other than, and I guess I should not probably put this out also on you, but the current #1 ranked student, last name starts with an E, and the A is ranked number 9. So how fair is that to the poor guy who did all that hard work and got to that ranking of #1, and he gets called 5 people afterwards because the person, number 9 is A. So it doesn't seem like a fair opportunity, I think. I'm in the business world, we all work very hard to, I wouldn't say beat each other up, but we are certainly, I get up every day, I get dressed, I hit that traffic. I am here to serve a purpose and to ultimately get higher and higher in my ranking. I always look at my peers where I'm working, how am I doing compared to them, how am I doing compared to myself? I love your analogy of the track star, I agree with you, we come into first place. I love a lot of what you offered. I don't really agree with the top 10 students because I do have a younger student, and I just think alphabetically just throws it out there for anybody. So the incentive for my poor daughter, who is now, sorry, getting emotional, ranked 6th, to be thrown at the 10th is like, all right, why she works for her? Why she's doing it. I can't believe I'm getting emotional. I guess because I know she's getting this. The other thing, I don't really understand the whole idea about getting rid of class rank. What is wrong with it? Why is it so bad to know where you stand in terms of other people? Maybe it incentivizes people to go the other direction rather than hurting other students that feel you didn't do well. Like maybe it helps them to move up a little bit, try a little bit harder. Maybe take that class that's a little bit harder. I don't see we're getting rid of knowing where you are. I don't see where the point of it is. I don't really know the board all that well, but I did hear that you're a businessman, correct? You own your company.
I don't know that.
$1 million company,
Be sitting here.
In your company, there's CEOs, there's CFOs.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's levels of people, and I want my daughter to understand how the world works. And by putting off things like class rank and changing things around, it doesn't teach her. That is ultimately to me what school is for, what college is for. How is she going to go into the business world? How is she going to the world if she doesn't know where she's ranked and what she's doing? Saying that she has to sit at the back of the room when she gets to her first job because she's a Yurchak, it's not going to happen. The people in the front are the people in the front, and the people in the back are the people in the back. I hate to put it down that everyone needs to know where they are, but they do. I really think that it's a beneficial thing to know where your class rank is. I think it incentivized her, of all people, she knew exactly where she was and exactly what she needed to do to get there. I think that was a wonderful thing. I thought, to me, Pennridge brought that out in her, and she understands now how the world works a little bit better and how to get ahead. So I don't see the negative connotation to knowing where you stand and where you are in ranking with everybody else. Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you.
You know, I don't have any kids in school.
We can still make you cry.
You probably could. This is, close to it. Nobody gets up on the Olympic podium in alphabetical order. They get up according to how they achieved. That's life. You can try to take that away. You can try to call it fair. And what you have done is be very unfair to the people who strived for the last 12 years and then said, okay, let's just gloss this all over. We're all the same. We're all alphabetic. My previous name, by another marriage, started with an A. Now I'm down to an F. My maiden name is an H. That should not tell you all where to put me on the podium. That has nothing to do with it. How hard I worked compared to the other people is where you should put me. And if it hurts my feelings, I hate to tell y'all where I graduated in high school, okay? I graduated in the top 25% and I had a C average. There were not that many bright kids in my class compared to the other classes because I watched them all go through because I was in the band and we played. And I thought, wow, we're just not that smart. But I knew that we weren't that smart because we ranked every class. And, it has meaning. I went to college and I made the dean's list all the time. And sometimes I had a GPA that was higher than the last semester's GPA, but you had to be in the top 10% to make the dean's list. So sometimes with a higher GPA, I still didn't make the dean's list. But I did well because Mom told me, I'm not paying for you to go party. Okay? No, she was paying for me to go and strive and do well. And you think that you're going to fool these kids by saying, oh, you know what? We want you to feel great about taking an art class or a photography class, and yeah, it's going to diminish your GPA. And if you're an extremely competitive student trying to get into an extremely competitive school, you're not competing just against Pennridge kids, okay? You're going to be ranked against them, but you know who you're really ranked against at the admissions office? Every kid that went to high school that's trying to get into that college. And so when you think you're going to help this kid by diminishing their GPA and their ranking so that they can take an art class that they can take when they're 30 years old or whenever they have time for it, you're not doing that kid a favor. Okay, there's plenty of time in life to take that photography class, the art class, the music lesson. They are preparing to get themselves into hopefully the most competitive school that they can get into. And they are not competing just against Pennridge students. They're competing against every kid in Bucks County, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, 50 states, and the rest of the world. Okay? You look at the composition of the freshman classes at your Ivy Leagues. They don't take people just from the little county that they're in or the state or just the United States. These kids compete against the whole wide world. And to tell them to take an art class and let them drop that GPA, you're not doing these kids a favor. And to not recognize achievement by doing things alphabetic, you're not doing these kids a favor. You're not being fair. That would be like telling our football team, why don't you go play? We want you to learn the rules of football and how to play your position, but we're not going to keep score. When North Penn comes over, we're not keeping score. We just want you guys to improve your football skills in case you want to go out for football at college. No scores allowed. That you get laughed at. And academics is as much of a competition as any football game. And then you're trying to diminish it. You're trying to throw cold water on it. You're trying to substitute things that don't help that child get into the most hot competitive schools. You know, if my rank is 300, okay, I've knocked out a bunch of colleges, but it was by my own action. Okay, nobody did it to me. But when you, as the adults in the class, in the classrooms, act like it won't matter if you take this art class instead of this AP class, you're lying to that kid. You are lying to that kid when he tries to go and compete against the other kids getting into competitive schools. And it's not right to do that.
All right, anyone else? Well, then we're going to adjourn the meeting. And the next curriculum committee meeting